And when you're not chatting, I'll get you to mute just for background information. So Claire and Ashleigh, if I can get you both to be the first to be unmuted, and Mary, you'll come in next, but I'll remind you and make sure you're off mute.
Sorry, just turning the fan off in case.
All right,
that's you can hear it,
Ashleigh. The weather.
Sorry?
You're rubbing it in.
It's so. I'm sorry. It is so humid.
We're in
very different to the jumpers and things that you're wearing.
December in Melbourne, and we're wearing a jumper, and we had to cancel a truck driver safety training event tomorrow because it's wet and cold and rainy. All right, I'm going to get started. Hi, my name's Dan Kneipp. I'm the CEO of the Amy Gillett Foundation, and I'm extremely excited to have a wonderful group of people with us today. You might have just seen that we announced a new PhD. It's the third PhD for the Amy Gillett Foundation. We have a range of people with us today to talk through what that PhD is and what it means for the foundation. So I'd like to start by welcoming and introducing Professor Clare Hanlon. Claire, hi.
Hi, Dan.
And also Ashleigh Marshall, who is our new PhD student.
Hi, everyone.
So Claire, can I get you to please first tell us why this work is important and what the title is?
Yeah, look, it's really important. The focus is on assisting in national sport organisations to build their capacity through policy and practices to assist female elite athletes who need to suddenly transition for a career outside of sport. Now, this is really important because we're getting more and more, fortunately, more and more elite athletes who are females. And unfortunately, though, we are also female athletes. That means that there'll be more experiencing sudden transitions away from a career in sport. And there's a lack of research in this area. And that's where the big problem is. I know Ashleigh, through her recent studies already, has identified that less than 20% of research that was conducted by 126 different studies, only 20% focused on females in relation to athlete career transition. And in another project that Ashleigh identified, out of 10 research projects, none had a focus on females. And yet females are different. There are differences from females to male athletes, and that needs to be recognised. First of all, looking at it from a contextual focus, we can see that there's a difference in competition structure, there's a difference in finances in relation to allocating, whether that be finances related to tournaments or to sponsorship. And so if a female athlete has to suddenly transition into a career outside of sport, you've also got financial effects that are happening too. The access to support staff and expert staff aren't as great either, for particularly for females who are professional athletes. So this is a really big, significant research that will have impact to female athletes across national sport organisations, also globally. And it wouldn't have come about if it wasn't through the initiation from the Amy Gillett Foundation. So it's incredible.
Thanks, Claire. And we'll chat a little bit today on the Foundation's history and how the Australian team were overseas, all training. They were all involved in a preventable crash. And because of safety problems, safety issues, they were forced to transition. But we'll also talk a little bit more about the history of the Foundation. There's a lot around cycling participation linked to safety, and particularly if you look at female participation. So I don't think a lot of people are aware of that connection and how Claire, can I ask why Ashleigh was a good fit for this work for you?
Ashleigh's background dominated in the context of her understanding of national sport organisations. She's experienced both in Australia and internationally, working with from a government's perspective in sport. Ashleigh's also had a couple of sudden career transitions herself that she's needed to move from. and also that she has a background in cycling in the context of mountain biking, but also in relation to the understanding of the importance of road policies and practices that are required to make people safe and feel comfortable, and that's an important aspect as well. So it's across the board. I'm not, and that's talking Ashleigh up. Sorry, Ashleigh, a lot of pressure now, but
Yep.
it certainly was a great candidate for this role.
Ashleigh, we're so excited to be a small part of your PhD. You're also working with the foundation 1 day a week, which is wonderful for us to increase our capacity, our qualified research staff that can help us. Why was this project exciting for you?
Thanks for the scholarship as well and the support. It is a really exciting project to be able to undertake. It's exciting for me personally. I have a real passion around organisational capacity of national sporting organisations, especially. As Claire has mentioned, I do have quite a bit of experience working in national sporting organisations, state sporting organisations, and at the government level of sport, both here in Australia and overseas. And working in the sporting environment, you can see the development of sport for female athletes, but also with that, there needs to be more support around their careers and their transition into and out of sport as well. So there needs to be a lot more of the development of support for female elite athletes. So that's something I'm really interested in. And also just it all works on my background as well. I've worked previously at Mountain Bike Australia. As I've said, I've already worked at government organisations in that policy area. So yes, it all sort of encompasses my background. So it's a great fit for me for what I would like to look into over the next few years.
And we're really excited, and we think there's places that this can go, and questions this can answer that are just going to be amazing. What I wouldn't mind touching on, and Mary, I'll get you to chat in 1 second. So Ashleigh, this is an extension or an expansion on the topic that Amy Gillett was doing when she started her PhD. Is back in 2005, and she had done a year. So was that exciting or daunting to realize that there's this sort of connection to a foundation, and how did you respond to that?
It was both actually, exciting and daunting. One, because I know there's the legacy behind this piece of work is wonderful, and I know that this was started. Amy's vision was from when she was starting her PhD 15 years ago. So it's great to be able to further her vision for elite female athletes, which I think is wonderful, and what I have a vision for as well. That in itself is daunting, picking up a piece of work, even though it's not exactly the same piece of work from what Amy was going to do, but I'm able to put on a little bit of a different spin, which is nice, but also very exciting as well, knowing that this is something that is so needed in the industry, and that it's something that was started such a long time ago that it's able to continue on now.
Yeah, great. And I might come back to yourself and Professor Clare Hanlon and Associate Professor Camilla Brockett from Victoria Uni in a bit. I'm going to jump to Mary Safe, who's Amy Gillett's mum. And Mary, most people aren't aware that Amy was doing a PhD, and I really wanted to start this conversation on how valuable the work is and how it links safety and female participation, and the connection with the foundation. When we've had, the foundation was started when the Australian team went through a preventable crash, so they had this sudden transition that they shouldn't have had to deal with. But this is literally the topic that Amy was looking at with her PhD. Can you talk to that around why Amy was excited to do this work?
Yeah, sure, Dan. This initiative that's going forward with the foundation, for Dennis and I, as Amy's parents, it's both poignant, but at the same time, really, really exciting. I can recall when Amy was telling us about what the topic was going to be, and she wanted to do a PhD. She was never one to be idle, and we were really thrilled that that she was going to begin a PhD. And I remember her; she was so excited about it, and there was a really funny side to Amy's character, and she'd say, "Oh, one thing about Amy was she loved to watch the swimmers, the Olympic swimmers, whenever she got a chance, and just gave her great joy." And she said, "Mum, I'm going to do this PhD and I'm going to be flying up to Queensland because I'm going to interview Susie O'Neill and a whole lot of other psychists." And I said, "Okay, Amy, if that's how it's working for you." But she was really, really joyous about beginning it. It's also poignant for Dennis and I, because as I look at it, the stars have actually aligned. When I look at Ashleigh and I hear Ashleigh's background and the other girls here, I just have this thing that this is meant to be, and it's come about through really, really great people who are willing to help. And I must say, Dan, you've given me a few surprises this year. And first of all, with Meter Matters legislation in Victoria, when you put that on me on Zoom, and, that terrible reaction. And I recall the conversation that you and I and the benefactor had about the PhD. And I had always thought it was, shall we say, unfinished business. And there was a sense of sadness about that. But I just couldn't believe that a benefactor had come forward and was going to help with this whole study and get it completed. I feel quite emotional now, just thinking that conversation through. So Dennis and I couldn't be happier about what's actually happening, and and it will be finished business, which will be a lovely feel. And that's apart from all the good that it's actually going to do for, female elite athletes, and setting mechanisms in place to give them support. And I know how important that support is. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Mary. And the phone call you're talking about with yourself, me, and we're just going to say Miss D is the benefactor who has requested to remain anonymous. It was one of the absolute highlights for me ever. It was just such a wonderful thing to chat to, and yeah, there was a lot of tears from all of us. It was really, really special. Mary, I love hearing you say about Amy going and interviewing Susie O'Neill. Ashleigh, I hope you're hearing this. Work backwards from the athletes that you want to meet, and go from there, because this sounds like a really good approach.
Yes, Claire and Camilla and I had a meeting just before, and we were talking about interviews and things like that.
So Mary, I want to chat on how some of this came about, because the Amy Gillett Foundation we're an evidence-based organisation. This is our third PhD. I'm trying to look at how we get some more. There's a lot of research work that's currently missing. And we were chatting one day. It's not that long ago. It's only a few months ago, and I was chatting around how it's great that our foundation is based on research, and that Amy was doing that. Now, obviously not a coincidence, but it would have been easy for us to go somewhere else, go in another direction. And then you told me about Murray. Do you remember that conversation at all?
I do. Hello, Murray. It's been a long time since I've seen Murray, but yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Murray.
Mary, can you remind me of that conversation and why you thought I should chat to Murray?
Just sorry, Dan, I didn't catch that. Say that again.
Can you remind me of that conversation and why you thought I should chat to Murray? Because we were talking about Amy's PhD, and you ended up saying, let me put you in touch with Murray because it'd be good for you to learn a bit more about it.
Yeah, that was because Amy had told us that Murray was going to be her supervisor for the PhD, and I remember meeting Murray sometime after Amy's death. I think we shared a coffee together, Murray. I can't remember the conversation, but I could put a face to the name and everything. And so immediately Murray's name came into my brain about this PhD. That was the contact. I was so pleased when I heard Dan say he'd located Murray. I think you'd changed universities, Murray,
Yeah.
but I was really, really thrilled that Dan had managed to track him down, and that you know, he clearly had an important part to play in this whole scenario.
So Murray, and it was great to get in contact. I think I ended up looking at every Murray Drummond in the world on LinkedIn, and you responded nice and quickly. So can you chat to the PhD work that you and Amy were doing?
Yeah, sure. So I supervised Amy in her honours year, and she had an interest in girls and in sport and physical activity, and so it was a basic, you know, kind of easy kind of honours project that she did, you know, surveys and interviews and those sorts of things that allowed her to get an understanding of how to do research around this area. And I always pushed her. I said, you know, she was a very, very intelligent student. The amount of work that she did, because she did all of these other, you know, had all these other things in her life. And I said, you really should be looking for first class honours because you can do a PhD. She said, yeah, but I just need to hand it up. I just need to hand it up because I've got too many other things going on in my life. And I said, okay. So she handed it up and she got an honours 2A. And then I remembered distinctly a couple of months later, she came in and she said, I really want to do a PhD. I really should have got first class honours. And I said, look, it doesn't matter. I said, you'll still be able to do a PhD. And I said, but what do you want to do it in? She said, I just don't know yet. I just don't know. And so I said, look, okay, so the great part about a PhD is that you've got time. You've got some time on your hands. You can use the first 12 months to spend thinking about what you want to do. And she said, definitely about girls. It's definitely about women. It's definitely about sport and physical activity. And I said, okay, so you need to go away and we need to start conceptualizing what this might look like. And over a number of coffees, I used to meet her when she was, you know, traveling here, there and everywhere around the world and so forth and around Australia. I would meet in a coffee shop down in Henley Beach and we would regularly meet there and just chat. We never met at uni very much, which was great. So we'd just chat and we'd talk. My wife, who has also been an elite level athlete, I'd also been an elite level athlete. Amy was an elite level athlete. And we sort of started thinking about something to do with elite level athletes, female athletes. And that's how it sort of came around. Again, we went away thinking and conceptualizing and so forth. And then, as I mentioned to you last week, there was this light bulb moment for her. And she said, I know what it is. I know what I want to do. It's giving me chills now as I actually think about it. She said, I know what I want to do. So she emailed me and she said, I want to look at people like myself who had previously been involved in elite level sport and then dropped from the team, dropped from the group, dropped from the sport, you know, and it wasn't their fault. And then what are the support systems that are set up there for them? What mechanisms are there? What you know, all of the social support that comes with it. And how do these young women then navigate themselves through to another life? Unfortunately for Amy, she was able to reconfigure her life and move into another sport because she was so gifted at what she was as an athlete. She really was quite gifted. And so she was able to do that. But there are a lot of other women who were not able to do that. And so what social support mechanisms were there for them? And she said, that's what I want to do. I want to try and change the system. I want to help these young women because she saw that, you know, that within men's sport, that there were a number of systems that were already, you know, established historically for men to transition to either to another sport or into corporate life or life beyond sport. So what would life look like for women who had been elite level athletes? What would their life look like beyond elite level sport? And so that was it. And that was the email I got the night before she had the crash.
So and you've told us, so you got that email in the morning.
Yes.
In 2005, and you got a phone call literally a few hours later.
Yes, yeah, from my from my head of faculty, and I distinctly remember where I was. I think I mentioned to you last week. I was with my children down at the park, and just playing down there, and I got the phone call, and I was absolutely stunned. You know, part of me, I'm so glad that I received that email the night before, though, because we're actually at this point now.
And that was the phone call that Amy had been in this crash
Yes.
overseas, and,
Yeah.
and she was killed. Yep.
Yeah. And so I had that email for quite some time, and I kept it, and I think I passed it on to Mary and Dennis, but that's probably, you know, gone somewhere now. So yeah, it was a pivotal point in my life as well.
And it was great chatting to you, Murray, and you spoke about how you'd hoped that this would be picked up, but over the last 15 years, it just the funding hadn't been able to eventuate. And we left that conversation saying, look, you know, I'd love to see if we can pick it back up, and let's see how we go. Louise, I might jump to you, and then I'll pick this back up on how Claire took it from that conversation with Murray. Louise, thanks so much. I see you're juggling kids.
Yeah, I do apologise for the. I hope my movement of the camera isn't giving you vertigo or anything like that. I do apologise.
Just a little dizzy, but I no, I totally understand. And Louise, you were on the Australian team. You were one of Amy's teammates. You were overseas, and in that horrific crash that Murray's talking about, that phone call that he received saying that, you know, Amy's been killed. You're an elite cyclist, and you just don't imagine that sort of thing's going to happen when you're in that position.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the phone call, Dan, the other day. You actually brought back a lovely memory of having a conversation with Amy a few days before, and she's saying how she was so excited about her study that she was about to do. And okay, well, let's go and deal with that in a minute. That's the wonders of being a mother.
Awesome.
Okay,
You just got the highlight of our interview there, Louise.
Sorry, I do apologise about this. And just that conversation that she was so excited to be doing her study. And I remember just having finished my degree and saying to her, I can't believe you want to go back for more. Like, I've got my degree, I'm done. And here you are, so excited and passionate about doing another study. So let me just think. So thank you for bringing that memory back to me. And sorry, just one second.
Louise, do you need me to chat after to you if you've got?
If you could just maybe, if you cross to Claire, give me 5 minutes. I'll deal with this, and then I'll come back. How's that sound?
If you can turn your video off and your mute off, and let us know when you're back.
We don't want to see that. Yeah.
And we'll chat on Louise. In 2005, she was planning on the next 6 to 7 years of her career. And it's an example of where her, you know, our foundation was started, and literally the best riders in Australia having their career cut short in a way that they just couldn't control. So Claire, I might jump back into chatting to you if that's okay. Professor Clare Hanlon from Victoria University, and I had this chat with Murray, and it happened pretty quickly. You know, Mary said speak to Murray, and a couple of days later we had a great chat. And I reached out to a contact in Victoria who, Kirsten from Vic Health, who just knows a lot of stuff. And I just said, hey, this might be a bit of a left field request, but this was the PhD Amy was doing. It's such important work. You know, it seems like it's more relevant rather than less relevant. Do you know anyone that'd be good to chat to? And as typical, Kirsten just emailed back about a day later, and she'd already reached out to you. And you'd replied in like an hour. Do you remember that? Can you talk us through that? Because the timing was just ridiculous.
Look, Mary was talking about stars aligning before. Mary, this is another example of that happening, where when Kirsten reached out to me, it was an immediate absolutely. It resonated with me in a big way, and it was an area where we know that change can happen. and that industry and policy and practices can be enhanced, and knowing that change with this project and with the Amy Gillett Foundation, the support there, you just know it'll happen. And so there was an immediate, let's move forward with this. And the people that were in the background, whether that be Dan, Mary, whether it be you in the background, knowing the background, whether it be Murray, knowing Camilla's expertise as well, it just all brought it together. My focus is on building organisational and community capacity to encourage more girls and women in sport as leaders and players. Now, this just fit just was the tip of the iceberg for the end of the year, basically. And it just showed the need that, you know, we can do this and we can do this together. This isn't a singular approach. This is an evidence-informed approach that has been created from a collaborative group, not from a singular group. And I think that's what makes this so unique and special as well. It's something that will be embraced by the community with the findings, but also hopefully it will also help with the Amy Gillett Foundation from Ashleigh with her journey along this next 3 years will be to provide the Amy Gillett Foundation with additional knowledge and evidence to help them grow too in what policies and practices from a broader community perspective this can be too. So I think it's not just one PhD. This is going to be an outcome that will bring everyone along the journey and during this time.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Camilla, can I throw to you briefly and just get an understanding of your background, and also I think you were at the AIS when Amy was killed, and so there was an enormous amount of work being done as far as what that meant for the community, for the sporting community.
That's right, Dan. You know, this is again poignant for me because I have very vivid memories of that announcement, and we had a whole of institute meeting in Canberra, and Peter Fricker, the director of the AIS, who's my direct boss, brought everyone in together to relay what we knew and highlight what we didn't know and what the response was going to be, and how the AIS was going to swiftly get over to support the girls. So it was, you know, obviously we've just spoken about the word unprecedented, but it really was in that time, and it was quite profound. But I you know, again, as Mary has said, Clare has said, timing and the stars aligning is quite remarkable, and you know, I'm humbled to be a part of this piece of work. My background is as a researcher and consultant in high performance sport development and athlete development pathways, and certainly in recent years there's been, you know, a growing focus on research and initiatives to better understand and support the unique needs of the female athlete throughout their athletic career. But there still remains a really critical knowledge gap as to how best to support female athletes to thrive beyond their athletic career. And some research that I have been involved in recently has been looking at mental health and wellbeing of athletes into retirement. And we know that there are unique psychosocial stresses for female athletes, and that national sporting organisations and institutes of sport need to better understand how to address these stresses to provide tailored, optimal support for female athletes during and beyond their athletic careers. So it's you know, a really exciting time to do this research.
Just some incredible people involved, and just like you said, Camilla, it's exciting that we can have a tiny part in this. Louise, can I finish with you, please?
Yes, sorry about that.
No. And in 2005, you'd only just made the Australian team, but you'd got a scholarship based. They gave you a trial. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the year before I had, I can't remember the actual name of it, but it was basically a 3-month development scholarship, it was called. And from that, I gained results, and then that qualified me for a full scholarship with the AIS. So it was my first year with the team.
And you said to me that you've been planning on the next 6 to 7 years. Can you just talk us through that? Because as you know, you've just made the Australian team. You're obviously really on the rise. You've got the results. You know, it looks like you've got your whole career ahead of you, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't get the results that I wanted as an under-19. And so I made the decision to get my degree, because I was always told and led to believe and under the impression that for a female cyclist, like, my career wasn't ever going to last forever. So I needed to always have that plan B. So I took the time and got my degree. And then the plan was to spend 6 months the next year, if needed, to just try and give cycling 100%, to see where it could take me. So at least then I could walk away from the sport knowing I'd given it everything. And I knew that I had my teaching degree to fall back on. So, and after a few months, I got the results that was needed. And then I was invited to go over with the team. And then that kept the ball rolling. So, yeah, so then I had my first year full scholarship. And at the time, my boyfriend at the time, we'd had the chat, and things were getting a bit serious, and we'd said that he'd just come off a sailing career. He was a world champion sailor, so he was very understanding of my commitment to my sport. And we said, you know, all going well, I'd like to go to, I think it was, we talked about this the other, I'm trying to remember.
Was it Beijing Olympics in 2008, you said, is that right?
Yeah, I think it was the next one. Was it 2010?
2012 London?
Yes, and I would be London. That's it, and I would be 31, I believe. And so that was the next 7 years were going to be dedicated to trying to achieve my dream. And that was our game plan. Then I'd be 31, I'd retire, and we'd start our family. And all was planned and mapped out accordingly until that day. So.
And did any point were you thinking, you know, what happens if I'm in a crash? You know, what happens to my career? You know, was this part of your planning? Did you consider what happens in this situation? No, we've lost Louise. Well, what I might do is I might wind up. I know we're a little bit over time, and it's a shame we've lost Louise, because it's pretty powerful hearing her talk about, like what she's saying, the planning for how she's going to go to the next 2 Olympics, and how that was cut short from totally out of her control with a preventable crash. Thank you all so much. AGF, Amy Gillett Foundation, becomes a backseat viewer of the next stage. You know, we get to watch this unfold. Claire, we're so excited to work with you, obviously with Camilla and Murray as co-supervisor, but you as the lead supervisor. And Ashleigh, thanks so much for doing this, and congratulations. And we just look forward to seeing how it goes.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And also a big shout out with Vic Uni, because they provided the scholarship. They were excited too. The focus is on women in sport and growing women in sport. And so Vic Uni made, you know, based on the application that Ashleigh put forward, and we had a look at it in more detail, Vic Uni embraced it as well and said, yes, let's provide a scholarship for this. So I think that's, between that, like I said, it's not a singular approach. This is a collaborative approach. We've got 3 universities here, Murray from Flinders University, as well as Vic University. Saying 3, I'm considering Amy Gillett Foundation a university. I've madly promoted you, but in the AGF as well. So I think, you know, that this is, as well as Mary, I consider you in the team too here. So I really think that this is a collaborative approach moving forward.
Thanks, Claire, and it's a really good reminder. Vic Uni's been amazing. You know, we're co-funding, and just the level of expertise and the way you've pulled this all together so quickly. So thank you all very much, and we're really grateful for your involvement.
Lovely to meet you all. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry I went a bit long, but it's just wonderful hearing everyone's expertise and involvement. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Thanks for organising, Dan. That was terrific. Yeah. Lovely to meet you, Mary. See you next time, Murray. Claire and Ash.
Later.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great Christmas too, as much as you can.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Dan.